The Russians are, even by our Ministry of Defense, reckons they're losing 900 men a day. That's killed and badly injured. 900 men a day. And they're going to lose a lot more in the next couple of weeks as the Ukrainians get more ammunition.
900 Russians are dying per day.
Dying or injured, yeah.
Yeah, and that... I was just I asked one of your colleagues, Angus, just to go back and say, was it absolutely double-checked? And we get so sort of blasé about things and used to stories, but right on our continent, that many mums are mourning their sons, lives change forever. I was just really struck by the scale of the bloodshed that's taking place. And
there are very few game changers in industrial age wars, and this isn't really going to be one of them. But it would have been a game changer if it hadn't gone through, in that it would have made it much more likely that Ukraine would not have been able to carry on the war for the rest of this year. Yeah. Personally, I think they probably would have, but they'd have been in a much, much worse position. Mm-hmm. The point about this decision by the United States, and really Mike Johnson, really did sort of hold history in his hands on Saturday morning, mid-morning, depending on which way he was going to go. This decision actually not only gives Ukraine some of the urgent material that it needs, and it will get it very urgently, but it also adds to the morale of Ukraine. It adds to the morale of the Europeans. There's a sense that this keeps Ukraine in the war this year, where they might be able then to do much better next year. They might be able to actually achieve some of their military objectives of throwing the Russians out of territories, not before next year, but they have to stay in the war in the hard times. And these are the hard times because Putin's forces are pushing all around the front as they can.
Yeah, I mean, that decision by the Speaker of the House, Michael Johnson, was a big moment in Washington politics. But as far as the Ukraine war is concerned, Michael, what does Ukraine need now? Obvious relief in Kyiv. What do they need now, and where are they going to get it?
Well, they need more of everything, given that they're up against quite a big military machine. But the things they need absolutely urgently are artillery shells, tank rounds, and anti-aircraft missiles. They've got to be able to neutralize the threat from the air, which has really done them some damage in the last few months, both on the front lines and in their cities. I mean, Kharkiv, the second city, only just over the border from Russia, is being relentlessly attacked. I mean, it's infrastructure, it's water supply, it's power supply, it's civilians. The Russians look as if they're planning to do to Kharkiv, a big city, what they did to Mariupol, which was to reduce it to ruins. So they've got to do, the Ukrainians have got to get some air defense in place, more than they've got at the moment. In the early part of the war, about a year ago, they were intercepting over 90% of all of the stuff that was thrown at them, the drones, the missiles, ballistic missiles, aircraft launched missiles. They were getting 90% of it. Now they're getting less than 50% of it, because they're just running out of ammunition. They just haven't got enough missiles to put up against these things. So that's their most urgent need: artillery shells, tank rounds, and anti-aircraft missiles.
Right. So we've had something like a stalemate along the front line for a while now. When this kit and munitions comes through, will there be a new Ukrainian offensive, another offensive?
There will, but I don't think it'll be on the basis of this kit. This kit will be used to build up. Neither the Ukrainians nor the Russians can conduct a strategic offensive until the spring of next year. Both of them can do things in the meantime. The Russians are trying to do something now just by squeezing everywhere. I mean, the Russians are, even by our Ministry of Defense, reckons they're losing 900 men a day. That's killed and badly injured. 900 men a day. And they're going to lose a lot more in the next couple of weeks as the Ukrainians get more ammunition.
Yes.
But neither side can do more than, as it were, arm wrestle at the moment. This is, I always say, this is like the 1941 moment of the Second World War, where both sides were arm wrestling. But, the balance of advantage actually went decisively in favor of the Allies by the end of 1941, but it wasn't felt until the end of 1942. And without drawing too many parallels between the Second World War and this war, there are times in long wars, industrial wars, which is what this is, where both sides just arm wrestle for advantage until one of them can conduct an effective strategic offensive which cuts through the map, changes the nature of the map. Now, the Russians will be trying to do that in the spring. The Ukrainians, I think, will be trying to do it earlier if they can, but they won't be doing it in the near term. In the near term, they've just got to survive for the next few months.
Michael, really good to get your expert thoughts there. Michael Clarke there, former Director General at RUSI.
It's taken a long time, but finally Ukraine is going to get the money, or some of the money it needs, to fight Russia. And I was going to talk a little bit about that, but 15 minutes ago, listening to your programme, the guy from Russia, whose name has just escaped
Michael
me.
Clarke.
Yeah, and he said 900 Russians are dying per day.
Dying or injured, yeah.
Yeah, and that... I was just I asked one of your colleagues, Angus, just to go back and say, was it absolutely double checked? And we get so sort of blasé about things and used to stories, but right on our continent, that many mums are mourning their sons, lives change forever. I was just really struck by the scale of the bloodshed that's taking place. And no wonder Ukraine is struggling to get people to, from its own side, to volunteer to go to the front line, because it's... Annalise Dodds, the Labour Party chairman, was saying, I think yesterday I heard her, she was saying, this is a war like a First World War in the trenches, but with sort of high-tech drones flying above you. It's sort of a combination of awfulness that I think we have perhaps... We've got used to the fact that Ukraine and Russia are at war, and we really shouldn't. And evil is taking place. The loss of life is extraordinary, and thank God, belatedly, America have come to give Ukraine the support it needs to fight this fight. But how many more young lives are we going to lose? How much more tragedy is going to unfold? And it's just a few hundred miles away.
High-tech siege warfare, an awful juxtaposition of those. And a glimpse of the Russian way, the understood Russian way of waging war, which is to throw their men into combat. The exact, I think, the close translation of how it's referred to is the flesh grinder. You sort of hear about the meat grinder. When you talk about the flesh grinder, that's an even more grisly sort of little sobriquet for it. But it was there. You were going to talk about the vote at the weekend, which was a big moment.
It was a big moment.
A moment when the Republican Party, to some extent, rediscovered what it used to be all about.
Yeah, and Mike Johnson, the leader of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, a political position unlike the Speaker on this side of the Atlantic, he had the majority of his own caucus vote against him.
Yeah.
But, good for him. He's not everyone's cup of tea, a very sort of staunch, traditional evangelical Christian. But he did the right thing, I think. And also, interestingly, Donald Trump didn't interfere on this occasion. Donald Trump could have probably brought the vote down if he'd chosen to.
He spent a lot of time interfering before.
He spent
Saturday.
a lot, but when it came to the crunch vote, he didn't instruct behind the scenes or openly anyone not to approve this package. So, there's so much risk ahead, and let's not be complacent. But I thought it was significant that he wasn't willing to try and jeopardise that very important vote. Thank God.
I said the Republican Party, the GOP, had rediscovered. Actually, as you say, it was a pretty close thing between the Republicans on Capitol Hill, but as you say, the majority was still opposed the provision of this aid to Ukraine.